Hello and welcome. It's Willow here. Great to have you with me. I am excited to do the best I can today to explain a little bit around this key moment that is possible for us as HSPs, where we start to understand what this high sensory intelligence piece means, how we can go from feeling lost, stuck, powerless into feeling aligned, clear, and purposeful. Let's dive in.
Illuminance specializes in developing sensory processing sensitivity, a natural high sensory intelligence present in 30% of the population, co-creating with the power of humanity to consciously evolve towards balance.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to another episode of the Illuminance podcast with me, Willow McIntosh, founder of Illuminance and creator of the High Sensory Method. And if you're new to the podcast, I train HSPs to come into awareness of their skill set, their high sensory abilities, and how they can utilize those in a way that feels exciting, that is most aligned with their purpose, and helps us to come into service into the area of life that we're actually born to work in. Now, the trouble for us as HSPs, what I want to talk about today, is that there's no blueprint for this. Well, there is now, because I figured it out. Sorry, that sounds a little a little big-headed. I don't mean to say that at all. But I have figured out a process by which we can actually make this shift. And that was from a journey of about 10 years of training and getting it wrong and figuring it out, because I really wanted to understand how we can actually follow a blueprint that makes sense of this, that allows us to actually make this shift into purposeful clarity, especially into work that really matters to us. And it is a process that we can figure out. It is a process that we can follow. And let me share a little bit. What I'd love to do today is just to share a little bit about the transition that I made myself into the awareness of what my high sensory intelligence is and how that completely changed my life. And I want to reassure you that you can follow this system, you can follow this framework that I was able to reveal. So let me just be a little bit more humble about this. I can't take full credit for it because it was downloaded through me. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to all HSPs. And it was a process that I was able to bring together through a great deal of trial and error, a great deal of support that I got, and through working with more than 350 HSPs over the last 8 years now, that has allowed me to bring forth this method, this high sensory method. So let me talk about what it was like for me before I figured that out, and how you can put yourself into that frame so you can get a sense of what this blueprint is for you. So the trouble that happens for us is that we are stuck in what I like to call our false identity. In other words, an experience of self where we're not feeling connected with ourselves. We're not really feeling connected with the world around us. And we're especially not feeling connected when it comes to the difference that we want to make and what we want to do in our work. Now, the feeling of that, so if I explain my feeling of that, it was almost like there was this engine within me that was so powerful and so fired up to want to do important work in the world. And yet, the part of myself that was trying to control that or trying to find the controls of that was completely disconnected. It was almost like a bad dream where I just couldn't engage with myself. And the reason this blueprint is so important is because it actually allows us to find the foundations or the key elements that we need in order to be able to engage with ourselves, to find the controls for that engine that is really powerful within us. And this is what really causes so much pain for us. And this is what caused so much pain for me, is that as a child, I had this profound awareness of what I was supposed to be doing. And I felt really empowered and I felt really aligned. And through the process that we all go through as adults, where really our empowerment is stripped from us as we go through the societal conditioning and whatever the conditioning from the lineage of our family brings to us, which is all meant to be, it's all designed that way. We're supposed to be challenged and we're supposed to be derailed in a very particular area of life, which is nature's way of training us to serve in that area. We all have an area of competence and we're all challenged in that area in order for us to grow and evolve and develop and serve through that area. Now, this depowerment piece is really what's happening for us. And without these key elements, that's where things get really confusing. So in my case, what was happening is I knew somewhere in the back of my subconscious, somewhere in the depths of my awareness, that I knew that there was this engagement that I was supposed to be following and pursuing in the world. And yet I felt completely disconnected from that. And the frustration of that was just crippling for me. It's almost like knowing or being able to sense that the very answer that we're looking for is just very slightly out of reach. And I knew that whatever I had to do, I had to figure out why there was this issue, why this part of me that knew what it was doing and had this deeper connection as a child felt so out of reach, and why was that happening? So the process that I was able to create came from the moment where I had this breakthrough in a session with my mentor, and I was asked a very specific question. And that question was, what is your reality? It's a very simple question, but when I was asked that at this moment, when I had absolutely had enough of trying to figure out why I was disconnected from this power within me, it allowed me to see that my reality was actually the key to the power that I was looking for. When I say power, I'm talking about a sense of empowerment. I'm talking about an engagement within myself. In other words, an alignment and feeling into the actual natural truth of who I am. And that is what I mean by empowerment. That was the bit that was unavailable to me or inaccessible to me. But it was understanding my reality, in other words, the way that I'm perceiving the world around me, that actually allowed me to engage into this place of alignment. And that then gave me the doorway into my purpose. And it gave me a doorway into the natural gift that I have, which is my high sensory intelligence, which is what I would really love to bring the conversation into today, to help to give you this experience and understanding of what this high sensory intelligence piece really means. This is completely specific to high sensory people. So HSPs, the term, highly sensitive person, it really refers to the ability that we have to process sensory information around us more deeply. That whole experience is a very important part of who you are. It's something that allows you to read the world more deeply in a very specific area. And that is the gateway into your empowerment. It's the gateway into your belonging. It's who you actually are. It's a key part of your identity. And what's possible for us is to make this connection between how we're seeing the world around us and what this sense of belonging and meaning really is. We're very interesting people. We're very powerful people. We're very important people in the world. We represent a section of the population that is gifted in a very particular way. And we're having to figure that gift out. And in the process of figuring that out, we're actually doing a great deal of work energetically for the world around us and for ourselves by coming into ownership of this ability. It's all meant to be, in my mind, in my experience, that we're not aware, HSPs, innately of what our natural gifts and abilities are, or we're not aware of the importance of them. We are aware of the gifts and abilities, but we close them down, we shut them out because we're trying to fit in. So that moment for me is when I was asked those words, what is your reality? I suddenly realized it was almost like this matrix moment where my whole sensory experience around me came into view because I'd been shutting that out. I took ownership again of what that reality is. And the struggle or the difficulty that I see in all the HSPs that I've trained over the years is that we just don't realize that we're actually seeing the world differently to everyone else around us, because the messages that we've been given over the years is that you're supposed to fit in. So therefore, in order to fit in, we receive the message that we need to see everything how everyone else does. We need to experience things. We need to have the same goals. We need to have the same aspirations in life, the same values in life, in order for everything to kind of work for us. But the truth of the matter is that the way that you're seeing the world around you is absolutely unique to you. And you're actually able to focus and process a particular area of life in detail. Now, again, when you hear these words, what tends to happen is we think, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like I understand what that is. Where everything changes is when we start to actually apply this and we start to test it for ourselves. This is what needs to happen with the ownership and the experience of our high sensory intelligence, is we need to start to get into the area of life of how this is operating. So I refer now to this area of what is most important to you, your mighty, M-I-T-Y, most important to you. There's an area of life that is most important to you. That, for me, is facilitating other HSPs to come into alignment of their gifts so they can come into service in the world. Because I know intuitively the depth of the role that HSPs have always played in the world and are supposed to play in the world. There are a series of very powerful and important leaders that have come through the world who are HSPs. Princess Diana, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Thomas Edison, the list goes on, of Abraham Lincoln. People who are extremely influential on the direction of humankind because of the way they were seeing the world and because of what they valued most, and most importantly, their ability to actually act upon that and make changes and make progress into that area that mattered most to them. It doesn't mean to say that we're all supposed to be world leaders and we're supposed to be changing the world to the degree that they were, but it does mean that if we want to find our own sense of belonging our own sense of purpose, we need to begin to walk the path of what our high sensory intelligence means for us. Once we understand these elements, which is what the high sensory method is based on, this process that I was able to reveal through working with all of you amazing HSPs over the years and through my own experience, it was actually through the doing of that that I was able to reveal that. So it wasn't through just listening to a podcast episode or by just being asked those questions, being asked those words, what is your reality, by my mentor. It was actually what I did with those words. And that is what then allowed me to create this process and support and help the HSPs that I have over the years. And that's what I'm inviting you to do. And I know this is scary, and it was scary for me to take that leap of faith and actually start to walk the path of what really matters to us and the area of life that we are designed to see more deeply as an HSP. We need to surrender to the way in which life is going to open that path for us, and it's going to guide us. It's going to it's going to open the right doors if we're willing to walk through them. And that does mean being seen and being acknowledged and practicing being in the arena of our high sensory intelligence, which is a mix of what matters to you and how you're seeing more deeply. Now, when we begin to take steps into experiencing how we're so gifted in that area, what we're seeing in that area, that is when the shift happens. That's when we start to come into alignment with our purpose. We start to get a sense of belonging. We start to figure out what our tribe is. We start to realize that there are other people that share a similar version of our gift. They share a similar mighty, what's most important to them. And through that comes our sense of belonging. Through that comes the clarity of what we're supposed to be doing and how we can be in service. And we can then bring that into our lives, into our work. We can either shift careers, we can start a business, and we can begin to do the work that is actually most important to us and has always been most important to us ever since we were a child. We have to go through this hero's journey, or it seems to be the case that all us as HSPs have to go through this hero's journey of knowing what was going on as a child. It doesn't matter if you can't remember that. Into this experience of having it all taken away, or by us making the decision to repress it in order to fit in. It's important we take responsibility for our own disempowerment, because we need to re-empower ourselves by recognizing that we can now reclaim what's ours and let go of what isn't ours. It's all our responsibility. No matter what's happened to us, no matter how difficult it's been, I'm not saying that people who may have abused you or caused trauma for you haven't had power over you. But what I am saying is, in the moment of when that happened, yes, of course, especially as children, they have power over us. But every other instance beyond that, that we are reliving that or we're allowing that to recur in our mind and our hearts, we are disempowering ourselves. So in other words, they almost showed us how to disempower ourselves, and then we keep practicing that. All of us, well, a great percentage of us went through that. And it doesn't mean to say that if you didn't go through that, this process isn't going to work for you. It is going to work for you. But what's important to recognize is that we all have to go through this hero's journey or heroine's journey of forgetting what our sense of self-engagement and self of truth, meaning and purpose was, and forgetting or repressing the importance of that, and then having to go through this period of our lives where life is then continuously giving us signs and indications of how we can reclaim that and re-own that and re-self-engage in order to then walk the path of who we truly are in the truth of our real identity as a result of experiencing the loss of it. That is a very normal path. And in order for us to reclaim that empowerment and to reclaim the clarity of who we are and what we're supposed to be doing, we have to do that in reality. We can't think that into reality. We have to be that and we have to do that. So in other words, once we get this awareness again of what I'm sharing with you right now and hopefully what's resonating for you, what has to happen next is we have to start being in the actual arena of that. And that's where our conscious awareness then evolves. That's when we actually energetically engage with the area of life that we're born to be in. And that's where these key elements of who we are start to then come back into ownership, conscious awareness, and use again. And that is reclaiming our high sensory intelligence. That is reclaiming the truth of our identity. That is where we find the sense of belonging again. That is where we start to feel at home in our bodies again. We start to feel great about the fact that we're here on planet Earth and we're here to do amazing things. And actually we can refine that joy and connection again that is our birthright, and life suddenly becomes amazing. And I promise you that is there for you. It just means a leap of faith of trusting what you're seeing, what matters most to you, and recognizing that it has a place in the world. You have a place in the world. And that is where life starts to take on a whole new meaning and a whole new level of joy and fun and wonder for us as HSPs. Thank you for listening. I would love to hear how this unfolds for you. If this has been, if anything that I'm talking about here is, difficult for you to hear, then I want to hear about that. I'd love to support you through that. I know my facilitation style is quite confronting in some ways because I get right to the core of what's going on. That's what I needed when I was coming through this. I needed something to shake me out of the false beliefs and the patterns that just weren't serving me. So share with me how this is for you. Share with me how your experience is. I want to know how I can support you further, whether you're listening to this if you're listening to this on YouTube, then write to me in the comments below. If you're listening to this through Apple, and you're enjoying this podcast, it would be amazing if you feel comfortable to leave a review. That really helps the algorithm to send the podcast out to more HSPs. So if you're enjoying this content, one thing that you can do to help, if you would like to, is to just hit those stars and write a review. That really helps us to keep doing these episodes and helps them to get out to the people that really need to hear them. So thank you again for listening. I look forward to hearing how you are and if I can help further, and I very much look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again, and bye for now.